Hello, everyone. My name is Kieran. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the second of the, I would say, 24 League Two club season reviews, but based off of availability of certain people, it probably will not be 24. And I'd imagine certain people won't want to talk about their clubs, mainly the relegated spots. But we're doing Morecambe, as you would have been able to tell by the title, thumbnail, and all that. Really important to kind of talk about them, especially at the minute. So I'm delighted to be joined by Jen today. So first of all, thank you for taking the time out of your evening to chat to me about Morecambe.
No, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. But yeah, the format that we're going to do this in, it's slightly different to the Accrington one. Of course, what we did with that one, we went some recruitment, football, than anything else relevant. But based off of, I'd say, more recent unfortunate events at Morecambe, we'll do it slightly different. So the thing that I've got up here is regarding some of the ownership problems and some of the worries that started realistically last season. So yeah, the things that I've got on here regard that it goes even further back. But in terms of this season, obviously you got relegated from League One going into this season. You had 14 players leaving upon the expiry of their contracts. No players were apparently offered new deals. You then received a 3-point deduction suspension because of paying players late back in March, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And it's resulted in a 3-point deduction, multiple fines, and then when you even go into right now, on the 20th of May this year, Morecambe announced the departure of 16 players with a club of a 5-strong first-team squad. So, in terms of just the reality of what has been, unfortunately, I'd imagine the past couple of seasons now, if not longer. How has that kind of affected the football aspect of things?
It's hard because you go into every season and it's pretty much like a rebuild. Like every season, you can't keep contracted players anymore because we just don't have the funds there to fund them. I think last season was the biggest hit. Obviously, only having like one contracted player last season, it was a full squad rebuild for this season. But again, we're in the same predicament this season, so it feels like it's a never-ending cycle of get a good team, not being able to offer any of them contracts to keep them for the following season, to then having to do another rebuild and not knowing what's going on with your club, where you're going to be next season. Are you going to be near the relegation zone? Are you going to be fighting for the playoffs? It's like you just don't know what's going on with the club at the minute.
Based off of this season, again, coming down from League One, a lot of people, if they wouldn't have looked into the ownership, if they wouldn't have looked into everything, they could have potentially said, if you bounce down from League One, you have those abilities to go straight back up. You end up finishing 15th on 58 points. It would have been 61 had it not have been for that deduction. But I've seen a lot of things, from multiple Twitter accounts to do with Morecambe now regarding Shrimps Trust, if I'm not mistaken, which is the do I call it an organization, a fan group that is?
Yeah, I'd probably say like an organization. They work with the club. They're associated with the club, so they're definitely like a big part of the club.
Yeah. So in terms of their role, what are they? Obviously, because there was a video that I saw that came out where there was a load of people saying "save our shrimps" and everything. What are they trying to do in terms of involvement and making sure that Morecambe go into the right direction in the future?
They're trying to raise as much money as is physically possible to help the club get by, whether that's paying wages when they're needed or getting players through the door, offering extra contracts, taking a bit of, I don't know if taking ownership is the right word, but taking a bit of leeway in that way. So the fans have more of a say within the club because we obviously don't have a say in what's going on at the minute. It's very much behind closed doors what's going on. There's a lot of rumours and stuff lying around at the minute that no one really knows what's true. But with the Shrimps Trust, we're able to get fans in to talk to the board and talk to everyone behind the scenes and get answers to what all the fans are wanting at the minute.
Yeah, it's obviously you've got your I'd imagine it's your owner in terms of what I've seen and who's caused all these problems, whether it's been not paying wages or not being very transparent. How did that how was that story regarding him and what he's done towards the club developed over these seasons? Because you mentioned, of course, that every season's a rebuild job and you don't know, or you haven't, no idea of what situation you have regarding your club, especially going into this League Two season.
Yeah, I feel like this season is probably the one that we're really struggling with, because it's at that stage now that if we don't sell, we could possibly not have a club next season. It's got to that state where he can't fund the club anymore and he can't offer players contracts. We're struggling again. And he keeps saying like he's got buyers on the table and he's got these two big buyers. And where's the proof in that? Can we see some sort of proof in that? Because to us, it's just word of mouth, trying to get the fans off his back for a little bit. But at the end of the day, he needs to sell before the season starts so we can actually try and figure out who we can get in and see where we can go next season.
Yeah, it's not been a nice thing to kind of read upon. I've only been kind of looking at it in depth for the past hour or so, but it's mentioned that you've had embargoes and all this other stuff and these situations where you shouldn't have to worry about this kind of stuff as a football fan. I've seen you posted it on your social medias. I've seen many fans of other clubs throughout this season posted that obviously football for a lot of people is a lot more than just that kind of than just watching 22 players kick a ball around the field. It's an opportunity to see people week in, week out, and the fact that that's being almost put to pause and a lot of uncertainty is around it isn't right by any stretch of the imagination. And I really do like what I suppose, if you want to put it, the football family have done to kind of help out Morecambe, but at the same time, you can't unfortunately overpower an owner that they have, because they have all the control over everything that goes on at the club.
Yeah, it's so hard because we've obviously, when the Shrimps was put that video out, we was not expecting it to get the attention it did. We wanted to get it out there to get the word of mouth and tell people what's going on with the club. But like you said, it's the football family. We've had so many people messaging, fans messaging, like players and stuff like that are with us saying, we are with you and we will help you out where we can. And I think that's such a huge part in football because nobody wants to see a club go bust. It's happened to Bury, it's happened to Bolton, it's happened to like multiple teams. You don't want to see another club go through what obviously their fans have seen. And it's difficult right now because we feel like we're in that stage. But hopefully, as he's been saying, within the next 10 days, apparently we'll have a sale. But whether we do or not, we'll just have to wait and see.
Oh, we're gonna hope that that does go through because, like you mentioned, there's so many clubs. Even this season, you've had Scunthorpe, Rochdale, in past times, Oldham and Bolton, Macclesfield. Oh, there's so many teams that you can name that have unfortunately been through these hard times, and it's never nice to see what's it happened to another club because I couldn't imagine it happening to mines. I will chuck that tweet to Shrimps Trust, that one, that video. I will chuck it probably top line of the description. So if anyone's watching this, feel free to go over and show support and do all this stuff to where hopefully we can get to a point where the future of a club is in a lot more of a stable position than where it currently is. We'll go into talking about some football now because that's the thing that we like and we want to talk about, not miserable things, but unfortunately, sometimes it has to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but
it does.
Yeah, I'll go kind of through every game necessarily. We'll go month by month in the same way that we did it with the Accrington season review, and we'll kind of just obviously there will be breaks in between, whether it be talking about this was at the time where obviously you had a manager change and everything, and weirdly the manager change that you had, the manager's now back that left,
Yeah.
and it's a third time round. But yeah, we'll go into that in a bit. So to start off the season on the 5th of August, you picked up a 2-1 win at home to Walsall, followed by an EFL Cup first round knockout game against Rotherham away from home, drew 1-1, lost 4-2 on penalties. A 3-0 loss away to Mansfield, where, in hindsight, given what they did throughout the season, I don't think it's too negative of a result. A 0-0 draw at home to Notts County, a 3-0 win against Bradford, and then concluding the month with a 2-0 loss against Harrogate away. So it's not potentially the perfect start that you'd want, of course, being a League One club coming down, but given you obviously would have had all these like we're going to have going into potentially this next summer within the realities of recruitment and the entire rebuild, did the players that you had signed and the players you had kind of let go and everything have an impact on this? Did they start to glue together? How was that first month in terms of, because you mentioned it being such a different season because you've near enough had to sign an entire first team and an entire bench and everyone else in between. How was that first month based off of all those factors in on board with it?
Yeah, I think the first month was getting used to the players getting used to each other, everyone getting used to everything that's going on, because obviously it was a full rebuild. But going into the first month, when the first game, I wasn't expecting to win because I thought, oh, these players won't have had that much time to spend together. They won't really know each other, how they work, how they play football. So going into the first game, it was a huge shock that we won that game. But we thought, okay, right, if this is how we're going to go, let's see how we do this season and see what happens. But as you say, it's a dip here and there, but it's purely down, I think, to the players just not gelling properly at that time, because obviously it was a full squad that had to come in and learn how each other played, all that kind of stuff. So I think off the first month, I would have said it's probably the best month we had throughout the season.
Yeah, I'm just looking in terms of transfer market with those summer transfers, and you're looking here at like a bare minimum of 15, 16 players joining. So to have those players kind of glue into a squad in such a little time is, yeah, it's quite nice to see the wins here and there, and that there was the potential on the field for it to be a positive one. But I will go slightly backtrack to that summer recruitment. Of course, you lost quite a few names. Dan Crowley to Notts County. You even want to talk Connor Ripley to Port Vale, Ryan Delaney to Newport, and then obviously I'm going to mention that.
Yeah.
Arrivals, of course, being there's quite a few names that have actually turned out really well. Chris Stokes, Charlie Brown, Cammy Smith. In terms of the recruitment, despite how kind of in bulk it was and how raw it was, given the fact that these players aren't offered long-term deals for the certainty of the future, were you satisfied with at least that kind of short-term recruitment?
Yeah, I think Derek, again, is incredible at getting the players in. He has the connections. That's probably one of the best in the league, I'd say. He's able to get players, especially loan players, incredible ones, to come to us and be with us. And I think that's huge for them in their stepping stone in football, to come to us, play. People can see how they play, how good they are. And then obviously they do leave us. But if we are just a stepping stone, I'd be more than happy to be that for a player that wants to get into the Premier League kind of aspect of football. But for the recruitment, I think Derek played an absolute baller last season. There's not one player that I disliked on that team, and it felt like a proper connection of a team. Everyone was all rallying together behind everybody. If someone made a mistake, they were just like, it's okay, don't worry about it, we'll go again. So I felt like last season's team was probably one of our best since we got promoted.
Yeah, I'm having a look at some of the loans here. You've got obviously Michael Mellon, who did really well. Eli King from Cardiff, Ethan Walker on loan. You had Tom Bloxham on loan from Shrewsbury. There's names in there where you're looking at them now in hindsight, and they did really well on loans, and now they're within potential of moving up the divisions. As much as personally, I don't love Derek Adams because of certain playoff finals. I got to admit, he is good at what he does, especially like you mentioned with bringing in players that are wanting to develop their careers and get that first touch of senior football. I think that he is really good at that. But yeah, we'll go on to September. This is where we introduce the lovely Football League trophy, or the Bristol Street Motors Challenge Cup, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
We've got a 1-0 win against Salford at home, a 2-1 defeat against Gillingham away, which I believe this was the time they were winning every single game on the planet 1-0. So quite interesting to see that they've scored 2 there. You've got the beginning of the Football League trophy, a 3-0 loss at home to Liverpool's under-21s, a 2-2 draw at home to Swindon, and then concluding September with a 2-1 win over Forest Green. It's, in terms of a league position there, it's a lot more, again, positive results. There's a few downwards kind of, I wouldn't say moments, but a few narrow defeats. But other than that, I don't think, very similar to August, it is quite a solid month in the retrospect of what was going on.
Yeah, I think that month was probably one of our best ones. It seemed like everyone was gelling together. We were getting the results we needed, really, to be getting up that table and getting away from the relegation zone. But I think the losses as well were starting to add up, and especially away. I don't know what it is about us, but we just can't play away. Like, we fall apart. But when we're at home, we seem to be absolutely brilliant. So I think that's something we need to work on, is our away form, because I think that made us dip quite a lot in the season. There was many, many losses away on the road, and if we would have won just maybe a few more, we could have been further up that table. But it's just kind of how football works.
Yeah, so there's, in terms of October, there's actually quite a decent run of away results, as you're mentioning. It starts off with a 1-1 draw to Accrington, a 3-1 away win to Colchester, a 3-1 home win in the Football League trophy to Barrow, a 3-2 away win over Sutton United, a 1-0 win over Tranmere at home, and then concluding October with a 4-1 win over AFC Wimbledon at home, and then a 1-0 away defeat to Barrow, which I remember reading quite a lot about, because of course that is the if you want to put it as a local game, the rivalry game. But yeah, it's, in terms of away form, I think this month's probably one of your better ones in that. There's a lot of really grafted out results in there.
Yeah, that month was probably I think it was a high moment for all the fans, because they're all like, okay, we seem to be winning a lot. We seem to be climbing up this table near the top end. Is it possible that we could get the playoffs? We didn't want to really believe it, given obviously our current circumstances and money-wise and stuff like that. But we were like, okay, maybe this could happen, but we didn't want to put ourselves in that bracket just yet.
Yeah, it's a lot better in terms of, again, that league format's it's quite consistent. But obviously November, if I'm not mistaken, is the month where Derek Adams did end up leaving, and it started off in an FA Cup first round win away to Lincoln, a 3-2 away loss to Grimsby, and then the Football League trophy, a 2-1 loss away to Blackpool. If I'm not mistaken, the first game for your new manager then at the time, if I'm not mistaken, Jed Brannan, the 6-0 loss away to Wrexham, followed by a then 2-1 loss to Newport at home. So within that, of course, you've got all of the worries and the scenarios with your ownership, but then you've had a manager change that is potentially a bit unexpected, and it's not started off fantastically. Having that paired with, again, everything that's going on, how did you kind of feel going into what was, of course, a busy December period, and then the January transfer window?
Yeah, I think a lot of us were worried going into January because obviously we had these great loan players and we knew we would probably lose all of them. And it's very, very hard to replace players like them. They were just too good to replace. And I think obviously Derek leaving, don't blame him one bit. I'd probably do the same. But I think having Jed in for that Wrexham game was hard because that Wrexham game I was there and it was awful to watch. No one was really connecting with each other. Nothing was really happening. It was an awful game to watch. And as a fan, you felt like this isn't my club. This isn't the team that I've seen the months before. Like, what's going on here? Something must be amiss. So it's hard. It was hard to watch going into like the Christmas period in January because we felt like we were slowly dipping down back into like the relegation fight again.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, having that first game under a new manager being such a heavy defeat obviously doesn't read to be quite the perfect want you have going into especially such a important January in terms of Morecambe especially. But yeah, we've then got December where you win in the FA Cup second round away to Wickham. A 1-1 draw against Stockport at home was followed then by a 5-0 win away to Doncaster, which near enough brought back the entire goal difference from the loss to Wrexham, which is quite fun to look at. You've then got a 3-1 loss at home to Milton Keynes, a 2-2 draw away to Bradford on Boxing Day, and then you concluded the year with a heavy 5-0 defeat to Morecambe. So yeah, I suppose there's the 5-0 win there to mention, but there's still a couple results there where you're conceding a few goals. Was it a thing in January where you were hoping that, I don't know whether it was an improvement at the back or just something to stop all these goals going in?
Yeah, it was definitely improvement at the back that was needed in January. It was just our defense was like non-existent at the back basically going into like January. It was difficult because I absolutely love all the players and you don't want to blame a player, but it felt like nobody was connecting with each other. Nobody was talking to each other. They'd just like run into each other and it's just like, come on guys, talk to each other and figure it out because as much as you don't want to lose, we don't want to lose either. So try and sort it out off the pitch and come back on. And we'll always be behind you. We'll always be backing you and singing the songs and everything. You just need to prove to us that you are trying your best out there. And if you're trying your best, that's more than enough for us.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone kind of hopes for. Losing isn't bad, but when you're experiencing heavy defeats, it's the want to bounce back and the want to be harsh without being harsh. If that
Yeah.
makes any form of sense, I'm very much in that similar boat when we're losing. I'm always wanting to say all of this and all of that, but knowing that you don't want to kind of be horrible to your players in that respect. But yeah, I looked at of course, your January recruitment. There's not really anything in terms of immediate defensive improvements. You've got a player on loan here from QPR, Caden Harrack, if I'm pronouncing that right. I hope so, but he brought
Yeah.
him in on a free from QPR, and then there's a few loans. There's Gerard Garner, probably most notably on loan from Barrow, Archie Mayer, where I believe I see him at every single League Two club on the planet, which is always fun. But in terms of that recruitment, were you kind of satisfied with it, or were you still not overly confident that you were able to tighten up at the back in terms of that retrospect?
Yeah, I think I was definitely happy with January. Obviously, with Archie come in, we had our goalkeeper Stu, who took a very, very bad hip injury and was out for the rest of the season, basically. And our backup goalkeeper is not the greatest, shall we put it that way? But he's not really played. When we had Connor Ripley, obviously Connor Ripley was in goal, and Adam didn't get a chance. So it was kind of his chance once Stu went down to prove himself, and he kind of didn't. So it was now the time to find someone to replace Stu. And we found Archie, and thank God we did because he's probably one of the best goalkeepers we've had, and he definitely deserves to find a club, whether it's League Two, National League, something like that. He needs to find a club because he's such a good goalkeeper. He deserves a very, very good club.
Yeah, I look at your January results, and that evidence sort of tighten up at the back has happened. There's no real heavy defeats, if you want to put it that respect. It started off with a 2-0 loss in the FA Cup third round to Swansea, a 1-1 draw at the Mansfield at home, which, if you look back in August, where you were having all these these transitional players come in, and there was even more uncertainty than it probably would have been at this period. It's a lot more of a positive result, a 2-1 win rather, to Milton Keynes, then away from home, a 1-0 defeat to Colchester at home, and then I'll even just mention quickly February in terms of that start, because I think the run you had here, there was a lot of people even mentioning that you were going to go into promotion, and within that talk, a 2-1 win away to Crawley to start off February, and then it was paired with a 1-0 home win to Sutton, a 3-2 win away to Tranmere, and then a 1-1 draw to AFC Wimbledon away. So that run of 4 games after, again, what was potentially a little bit of inconsistent form, how does that kind of, contradict to what was arguably not necessarily a lackluster January, but again, an inconsistent one in terms of results?
Yeah, I think then couple of months after January was wild because it felt like, oh my God, okay, we're winning games. We're somehow getting up near to the playoffs, and we don't know how this is happening, but for some reason we're winning games. We're right behind the lads. It feels like we're on that playoff push, and that was incredible to be on because obviously we got promoted during the COVID season, so it was very, very limited on how many fans we could take. So it was like, if we do get to Wembley, then think of how many fans we could take this time. But we didn't want to get too ahead of ourselves because they're like, all right, okay, we're good. But if we go to League One, could we survive again? Probably not, given the wage budget, the ownership problem. We probably wouldn't survive. So it's like, as much as we would have loved to go up, we wouldn't have survived, and we probably would have come straight back down again.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you want to, make that step up to League One, you need to have kind of, the entire club on the same wavelength, as we would have mentioned in the opening 10 minutes. At the minute, it's not fantastic, but obviously the hope is that, like you mentioned, hopefully within the next 10 days, something comes out, even if it is just a bit of transparency for that, just for fans to read and be a little bit more certain of it. It's that kind of thing that you wish every owner would have, and you'd wish everyone in that higher end of a football club would kind of have the decency to do, I suppose. But in terms of finishing February, you had a 3-0 defeat away to Walsall, ended it with a 1-1 draw to Grimsby at home, and then we'll go to kind of the first 2 results in March, because I think they're also, again, very, very beneficial for the good feel of could you climb up to playoffs. That being a 3-2 away win to Crewe, which, if I'm not mistaken, they were 2-0 up before you came back to win it 3-2, and then a 1-0 win at home to Crawley. So even though I think it was at this point that, or it would have been just before this point, that you had all of the news about your owner being fined for not paying players and everything, the results on the pitch, you're beating teams within the playoff push and within that promotion push. So was it the same feel that you could potentially go on and, achieve what realistically everything is against you to do?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It felt like, obviously, we got the news about the wages not being paid, and we thought, all right, okay. There was rumours the lads would sit out and they won't play, which is fair enough, because if you're doing a job, you want to get paid for it, end of story. But a lot of them did come out and play, and obviously they're incredible, incredible lads to even come out and play when you aren't getting paid. And I think they doing that showed the fans that they really care about the club and the fans, and that was more than enough for us to get behind them. And obviously it showed on the pitch then that it was working and we were getting behind them and the scores were coming in and we were getting up there. So we were like, okay, maybe this could actually happen.
Yeah, like I believe at this point you were something on. You were within that group of. There was some point in this season where there was about 8 clubs within about 4 points of the playoffs, and you were in that range. You were probably within the higher point, 2-3 points off, maybe at most. To even be in there within, all the circumstances, and like you mentioned, the kind of rumors of players not wanting to play, to even be in that kind of discussion kind of shows that should you have had this confidence of ownership and it would have all been running smoothly how a football club should, then you probably would have at least been up it and been able to, even if you didn't build on towards next season. But after those results, it wasn't quite as pretty, I suppose, in terms of the next 4. A 3-1 home defeat to Wrexham, a 5-3 away defeat to Newport, probably the weirdest game I've ever watched, to be kind of
it's a weird one.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go into it, but I think it was 3-3 at one point, and we had thrown a game away before, and it's such a thing for us to do, and we've won it. But and then it was a 3-1 away defeat to Salford, and then a 3-2 home defeat to kind of Gillingham. So in terms of what was, I suppose, 2 months of high moments, 2 months of really good performances on the pitch, that is, of course, 4 straight defeats. Was that, especially when, again, in hindsight, I think it was a month later then that your points deduction was activated in April and all the other fines and everything were coming out. Was that where, that almost high comes down and it's back to, where are we and what are we doing kind of thing?
Yeah, it was at that point that we knew we probably wasn't going to get playoffs, and it made a lot of fans feel a little bit down about it because we obviously were on this massive high thinking we were going to get there, and then obviously everything kind of fell apart and the points deduction came in and it was like, we don't have enough to get into the playoffs now. It's mainly about see what we can get out of the season now, see where we can end up in the table, and just get behind the lads, because as much as we are upset and mad at the owner, it's nothing to do with the players. They're going out there and they're playing that to their best that they can possibly do, and we need to get behind them and show that we are right there with them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the best thing you can do as fans, obviously knowing that you can't, I suppose, off a track record, directly talk to your owner and everything. Just getting behind them, I think, is probably the best thing to go towards. But yeah, within that then final month of the season, it's kind of a story, I suppose, of more the beginning of the season, a little bit inconsistent with form. A 2-1 win away to Accrington, a 2-1 win over Barrow, which I'd imagine would have felt good after the previous after the previous defeat. I would imagine that would have felt great. But a 3-0 loss at home then came to Doncaster, which still meant you win on aggregate 5-3. We'll just mention that. Yeah. A 1-0 defeat to Crewe at home, a 2-0 defeat to Stockport away, a 2-1 defeat then to Forest Green at home, and then you finished off with a mental 3-3 game. So in terms of those results, like you would have, you kind of alluded to, that Barrow result was probably the pick of my end of results in terms of which one probably was the nicest to achieve. But were there any moments within those final 6-7 games that you look back on and you're pleased, upset, or anything in between with what happened with them?
I think the Barrow one was probably the best one because there's nothing like beating your local rivals. Like, it's unmatched, that kind of feeling. So that we got over them was fantastic. And then obviously the last game of the season was absolutely wild. And I think that just showed how much the boys really tried on the pitch and really, really tried going into the last bit of the season to push us up and see how many points we could get, see where we can finish. And it was nice to see everyone coming together fan-wise. Like, everyone was together and rallying around each other, which was really, really nice to see. And that was helping the players as well, knowing that even if we lose, we're still there clapping and cheering them on, because at the end of the day, that's what they need from us at this moment in time. And the last game of the season was obviously hard because we knew most of these players aren't coming back. We're kind of used to it now. So it was kind of like a say goodbye to these players, which is sad because it was probably one of our best teams we've had in a very long time. And I would have loved to have kept like at least half of them. But given our like circumstances, it's just not possible to be offering them contracts when we can't sometimes even pay the players the wages that they earn.
Yeah, it's obviously every club has it, where even if it's loan players that you've had since January on the final game of the season, you're saying bye to them. But I think it was a lot different, I'd imagine, for kind of your final day of the season, because you knew that even a lot of players you had on permanence weren't gonna stay, and it was kind of, I suppose, summarized on the 30th of April, where it was only a few months after Jed Brand originally joined as that manager and succeeding Derek Adams in November. He left the club to join Accrington's. In terms of, you even had Ben Sadler, who was the chief executive, if I'm not mistaken, at the club. He ended up joining Walsall's. In terms of April and just after that season ended, all of those things kind of come within a really quick level. They come within a really quick time period. Was it back to almost how you were when you got relegated from League One the season prior, of what are we going to do going into the season next?
Yeah, it felt like we'd just been relegated. Losing Ben was massive because Ben has done unbelievable stuff with our club. He's put it out there. He's done amazing things within the community to get more people into the ground and watching the games and stuff. So for him to leave was huge for us. And now it's trying to get someone to fill that space for him. But again, I don't blame him for leaving. Same with Jed. They've all got families to feed and bills to pay. And if you not knowing if you're going to get paid at the end of the month, it's just not right, especially when you've got a mortgage and a house and a family to pay for. I don't blame anyone for leaving the club at all, but it is in a very, very sad state of affairs at the minute.
Yeah, it's paired with, as I mentioned at the beginning, 20th of May this year, which wasn't long ago. You announced 16 players leaving. You had one player under contract going into the season that was guaranteed. Of course, you had five players afterwards that had agreed extensions. And then the final thing I've kind of seen is that the following day, the club directors called on Whittingham to sell the club to avoid a catastrophic outcomes. Here, as you mentioned, you didn't hear too much from the club regarding any of this, but to hear, your own club's directors saying that you're within potential of going into a catastrophic outcome, as the direct quote is, surely that can't be, a thing that fuels you with much positive feelings going into the season. And again, it takes away a lot from the positive things a lot of people associate with football.
Yeah, I think, again, we're incredibly lucky to have the board that we do. A lot of them are massive Morecambe fans and really care about the club and the fans. There's many of them that come to every single away game and sit in the stands with the fans and talk to the fans. And you don't get many like board of directors like that. So I think for us to have a board like that is massive. If we had them, we probably wouldn't be here without them. They've been a huge part. Sometimes they paid the players' wages when he's not put the money in the bank account. And as directors, they shouldn't have to do that, but they did. And they're incredible at what they do. But that statement was, I think it was a huge thing from them to put that out there and say, look, we're in this now, and it's not looking good for next season if we don't get sold. And I don't think Jason liked that one bit, but at the end of the day, you've got to put the word out somehow, and they had to do it that way.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if he's not going to be the person to say anything to the fans. You need to have someone at least give you some form of clarity going into the season after. But yeah, in terms of the final thing, I've kind of got here is the return for the third time of Derek Adams. But it would have been within this month. You've already talked and we've already mentioned about how kind of positive he was within the summer recruitment last season, especially with the loans. So are you confident again that he can do that similar thing under these kind of circumstances, or are you potentially confident that there is going to be something happening with Jason? He will at least, say something about the sale of the club, because from what I've scrolled through and what I've looked at, this has been about 2-3 years of him saying the club's been up for sale and that he's gonna, allow someone to take the helm and fix what's going on in the higher end of it.
Yeah, I think with the sale of the club, we don't really believe anything until it actually comes directly from the club. Like, he can go on these radio stations and he can talk and say all this stuff, say that he's got like 4 buyers or whatever it was on the table. But we don't really believe that until we see it now, because he's been saying that for the past 2 to 3 years and nothing's happened with that. So it's like, what do we believe from him now? We'll believe it when the club is sold and we get a statement from the club saying that it's been sold. That's when all the Morecambe fans will be in Morecambe pieing and drinking together, because it's been a long, hard 2-3 years. And I'm hopeful that it does start before the season, so it gives Derek a bit more of a transfer budget. Like, he's great at what he does and how he gets these players in on the budget that we do have. And I think having him back, I think everyone kind of expected it. It was either him or John Coleman, I think, who was going to get. But having Derek there, he understands the club. He knows the backstory of what's going on with the club. He knows how the club works. He knows the fans very well. So I think having him back is definitely much of a confident boost for us, because we know how good he is and what he can do. So it's just seeing if he can deal with the low transfer budget again, or we get sold and we get a bigger budget and see what we can do with that.
Yeah, I'm within the kind of, as I'm imagining a lot of people are, within the hope that you'll have some news out directly from the club and you'll know what's going on. You can look into it, and again, like you mentioned, hopefully you can all have a drink and have a nice time and just forget any of this has happened, because like you've mentioned, I've seen so many Morecambe fans mentioning it, that this club is a real staple of the local community, as most football clubs are, and it's something to allow you to ignore everything going potentially wrong in your own personal life. It allows you to ignore that for 90 minutes and socialize. Like I've said, the fact that somebody can potentially take that away, or at least put that main focus of football, which is entirely positive, to something extra anxiety inducing and worrying, is never something you like to see.
No, it's definitely not, especially Morecambe are much like a family-based, orientated club. So that you see families, generations coming through, and you don't want like someone's granddad to be sat there thinking if the club's going to be there next season. He should be able to buy his season ticket and know that he's going to be able to come back next season with his grandson and his son and his wife, or whoever he goes with, because it's very much a generational based football club. And everyone's so close, so close. Everyone knows everyone within Morecambe. So I think having the football club there is massive for us. And if we lost it, I generally don't know what would happen to the community.
Yeah, I think it was the same with, even if you talk Bury, Macclesfield, Rochdale, it's very much a similar situation. There's generations that support it, and it's not like you're just affecting, yourself in terms of an owner, and he's not affecting just his own pockets. That, like it's been mentioned, it's a chance for fans to all come together and ignore anything negative that's going on for a very bare minimum 90 minutes throughout a weekends. Again, the fact that that's within uncertainty something that shouldn't really even be a thing that's happened in the first place, and the fact that these people are still allowed to come into clubs without the backing and the certainty that they can keep funding a club long term isn't something that should happen at all. But yeah, I suppose in terms of a wrap up thing, if you've got any, moments of the season for good or bad, or kind of any extra things you want to add about Morecambe, whether it be the players or situation or anything, feel free to.
Yeah, I just think this past season was a bit of a roller coaster for us. There's many like ups and downs. It was probably one of the most craziest seasons we've had within League Two. But I think from a fan's point of view, it was great to watch. It was great to be a part of, and I just want the club to be sold, and I want us to be looking forward to next season and not worrying what players we can keep after next season. Are we going to be doing another rebuild? Are we actually going to be sold? I just want us to be sold, be secure, and be able to offer players like 3-4 year contracts, and just be happy again and not have to worry about the off-field situation, and just enjoy the football with my friends and have a great time doing that. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that is the thing that we all watch football for at the end of the day. But yeah, I think, again, I think that's kind of everything wrapped up within about 47 minutes. So, thank you very much for taking the time out of your evening, as I said, to, talk Morecambe and the entire situation in this season and everything else in between.
No, thank you for having me. It's been great.
Fantastic. So, yeah, thank you all for watching or listening, depending on how you're how you're digesting this content. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Like I said earlier on, in the top link of the description will be the link to the Shrimps Trust video regarding helping out the club in ways that you can, as a football fan, or whether you're a Morecambe fan watching this in your own situations. Thank you. Like I said, Jen, if anyone wants to kind of find you on social media, where can they?
Mainly on Twitter, it's @jenhun_, but I'm also on TikTok and Instagram, which is the same username as well.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to put those links also in the description. And like I said, thank you for taking the time to talk about Morecambe.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, if you've again enjoyed this, make sure to leave a comment regarding Morecambe, regarding any form of other clubs that you'd like to hear about going into, again, a summer of no football, which is, I say a summer of no football, there's a competition going on, some form of international thing. I don't know what international thing is going on personally, but yeah, I'm sure whatever it is, England won't be winning it. Anyway.
We won't. You're right there.
This is where I was really hoping for something. I was really hoping for a really witty response. Every now and again, I make those jokes and I get something. But anyway, regardless, I hope you've again enjoyed listening, and we'll be back soon enough with, I don't even know what club we're going for next. I'm not doing these in any particular order, but yeah, make sure to support channel in whatever way you see fit, and find me on all the usual links, Twitter, Instagram, and all that lovely stuff. So I hope you all enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're viewing this, and take care.